everyone. You're listening to the Sailing to Success podcast show, where we share practical tips and strategies to help you be more productive, boost your profits, and grow your business. I'm Lyndsay Phillips, founder of Smooth Sailing Business Growth, and I'll be your host and captain for this 30-minute excursion. So today you're going to hear from guest Dan Moyle of Interview Valet, where he shares his insight on podcast interview marketing. So you'll learn how to be a great guest and tips on how to have a successful podcast. So let's set sail. Hey everyone, as I introduced, we're talking to Dan Moyle, who promotes helpful, engaging marketing over interruptive advertising. And coming to marketing from the TV news business, Dan brings a wealth of knowledge from writing to video production to multimedia content creation. And he says that he'd rather help someone reach 50 ideal customers rather than 5,000 passive viewers. And I highly agree with that. And he's a believer in servant leadership, and he can be found behind the scenes at work with organizations like Talons Out, Honor Flight, and Interview Valet, which I have worked with, lifting others up with service and a strong work ethic. So thank you so much for joining.
Oh, Lindsay, it's a pleasure to be here on Sailing to Success with your listeners. I love it.
Awesome. Now, I was kind of intrigued by a couple of the terms that you have, and one of them is interruptive advertising. What do you mean by that?
To me, it's the basic. We're all so tired of being interrupted when we're watching TV or if we're listening to the radio, or I go to check my mailbox as if we still get junk mail. But it's that idea that I'm going to say to you, hey, stop in what you're doing with life and look at me. That to me is interruptive advertising. So it's, ads, pop-up ads, banner ads, whatever. So
do you hate pop-ups for websites?
I do.
I know, but they work. They convert.
I know. The data shows it. I know. Data. Always rely on data, not your opinion. No, I know it. I know it.
But I totally get you. And it's funny, like on being on one side of the fence for marketing, and then as a consumer, we have a different opinion, right?
Absolutely. You got to wear those two hats, go back and forth.
I know. And what do you mean by servant leadership?
Oh man, I love servant leadership. It's, to me, being a leader of people, you have to inspire them and lift them up and empower them to be better than what they are right now in order to help whatever you're doing move forward, right? And so to me, servant leadership is all about serving those around you to make them better. And I'm a faith guy, so I take my cue from my faith and from my Christianity that, that Jesus came to serve, so I'm going to serve, right? I take my cue from other leaders who, like Simon Sinek, Leaders Eat Last was one of his books, and same kind of thing, that I'm going to serve my team in order to make them successful. Yeah, and that's true, and I think that's becoming more and more prevalent over the years. Versus, 20 years ago, it was, just so much sales based, you know what I mean? And now we are a little bit more focused, I hope. Some people are still lagging behind, but more focused on, serving people, giving them information and building relationships. It's just a totally different approach. Yeah, absolutely. And when you take that idea into the leadership realm and you look at a team, you say, okay, I don't want to just push down my orders to the team. I want them to be invested. I want them to have ideas. I want to give them all the tools they need to be successful. I mean, that to me is a mark of a true leader. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, honestly, it's like, sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees as a leader, right? And someone that's on the front end, if they see something that could work a little bit better, I'm like, please tell me. Yeah, totally.
Any way to fix the situation. Now, I know you're heavily involved in, inbound marketing to grow your business. And of course, for my business, I focus on content marketing. Can you explain the difference on what is inbound, or what is how do you define inbound marketing? Yeah. The age old question of our times right now, right? Joe Pulizzi versus Brian Halligan. I call it inbound marketing mostly because I was a HubSpot customer for a long time, still a big HubSpot fan. Yeah, I love them. Great resources. But I've also been to content marketing world, love what Joe Pulizzi does. So content marketing to me is still very powerful as well. I think it's a slight difference in my mind though, that inbound marketing, it includes content marketing, but it also could include other, a little bit of outbound advertising. It includes a little bit of the
the definition of, attract, convert, and delight.
Yeah.
Whereas to me, content marketing always has seemed to define itself by content, not necessarily versions, but about content.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I do think that content marketing has evolved to be really a lot more like inbound. So they're really interchangeable to me for the most part.
When I think inbound, I think of it being the lead capture part, like hooking them to attract them into the funnel. Whereas like content marketing is more broader, where it's all those stages from that beginning, that moment that they get in, so to speak, and then nurture, have your sales funnels and convert them. But yeah, that was always my sort of thoughts anyways. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's how I viewed it.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I like thinking of the content as everything, but as the inbound is bringing them in. So yeah, that's a great way to distinguish it.
And why do you love inbound marketing so much?
It's funny because I think back to why I love it so much. It's because when I was in the newsroom as a news producer of a morning show and TV news, I kept thinking, I really want to use content and storytelling to do something different in the world, not just tell news, but I want to bring it to a company, and I want to help with PR and media relations and anything to do with their communications, and bring people to them. Right. Not just shove it down their throat, but bring people to them. And so I really fell in love with that idea before I even knew what it was called, about using content and social media and all these different tools now at our disposal. And so I just love that part of it. And the other thing I love about it is that, rather than trying to interrupt someone's day with, commercials or billboards or radio ads or, banner ads or whatever, even search ads, I can't stand. I'd rather bring them to me so they get to know me, they like me or the business, and then trust us. And then you do business with people you have a relationship with, right?
Yeah, exactly.
With the exception of huge retail or just transactions.
Yeah.
So much of our business is based on relationships. And that to me is what inbound really is all about, is relationships.
Awesome. I love that. And I love the blog that you have on the inboundevangelist.org as well.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah. And of course you have a podcast as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
I actually don't have a podcast yet. I'm working on that. I'm hoping.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because no, that's fine. It's funny because people think I do because I get to go on so many podcasts, but I'll be honest, Lindsay, all the work that you do on your podcast, I don't have the work ethic for that just yet. That's why I love podcast interviews, is because I can just be the guest and get to talk to you and reach your audience. You trust me enough to bring value to your audience that I get to just be here and hang out. And that is so much easier than what you do. Right.
Fair enough. And of course, a huge part of content marketing and building relationships and serving people is podcasts, and it's growing so much. And I love the term that you have, podcast interview marketing. So can you explain that to the audience for those that wouldn't understand that?
Yeah, absolutely. We, as marketers, we have so many things at our disposal when it comes to a toolbox of everything we can use, right? Obviously advertising, promotion, owned media, earned media, native advertising, all these different things we can use, social media, search engine optimization. To me, one of the newest tools is going to be, or is already, podcast interview marketing. So if you think about, social media marketing, you think about search engine marketing, email marketing, whatever you want to call these things, this is one more tool. And it's basically, it's being able to tell your story and offer value to your potential buyers through podcast interviews. We are such consumers of podcasts now. 400,000 podcasts was the latest number from iTunes.
Wow.
1,000 every week or something like that. Of course, out of that 1,000, how many stick around? You've got quite a plethora, a library of podcasts yourself, but not everybody has that kind of staying power. So even though there's 1,000 every week, there's a ton of podcasts. Some of them do go away. Now, with that said, though, we're so hungry for podcasts and for content, and it's such a beautiful medium because it's intimate, I think. As you and I sit here and talk, the listener is sitting there with, earbuds in, or they're in their car, or they're at their desk, and they can just listen almost as if they're listening to a conversation at a coffee house or a bar or whatever. Right.
Yeah. So true. It feels interactive. That. I know when I'm listening to podcasts, and I actually prefer the ones where there's two people having a conversation versus the one where it's just one person speaking, but that's my own personal thing. But yeah, you do feel like you're kind of hanging out with them and you're listening to the conversation.
Absolutely. That's powerful.
It is. Now, for anyone that's starting out or wanting to start a podcast, what do you think the goals they should have stepping into it?
I mean, I think one of the biggest goals is to figure out what your goal is, right? I mean, if you really want to drive sales to your business, if you have a marketing agency and you want to bring people in and be a thought leader, then creating a podcast where you are that thought leader and bring on other thought leaders. Now you know what your goals are, right? For me, my goal is to spread the message about podcast interview marketing and to begin to develop a network of people that I can, at some point help and maybe even rely on a little bit to, for things like speaking gigs, book sales, I guess. I mean, I don't care if my book sells. It's more of a business card to me.
Yeah.
That's kind of the modern era, right? But defining your goal should be your first goal. I think the second goal should be defining your buyer persona. Where are the people you want to reach? Where are they? Are they going to be your tribe that listens to your podcast? Okay, great. Then start a podcast. Are they going to be beyond that and you need to get on other people's podcasts in order to reach that audience that's engaged? Great. Look at that. And what podcast are they listening to? So.
Yeah, that's so true. And I don't know if you come across this, but when you were talking about some that start a podcast and then don't necessarily carry it through, I think some of them, to me, maybe they don't have a goal, or they want to do it and they don't, they feel that they don't get a customer in 2 months or less, so they bail, or their goal is strictly for, monetizing it and for sponsorship. It's not a short-term marketing strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. As you were saying that, a word picture kind of popped into my mind of podcasting is like a marriage. It's not something that you're going to, that you should enter into just because you kind of feel like it, right?
Yeah.
You're like,
exactly.
It's like, this person's attractive. I'm going to marry him on the first date. Wait, hold on a minute. And same thing with podcasting. Like, boy, this sounds fun. I can do this. This will be great. This will be easy. You start it and you realize, it takes a lot of preparation, content, all these things, production. I mean, pre-production, production, post-production, right? So you have to set your goals up and then be patient, right? Be in it for the long haul, not just the short term. Oh, that was fun. Let's move on.
I know, totally. And I find, just some people have the wrong expectations or the wrong goals. So I think people should be, aware of that. And really when it comes to a lot of different marketing strategies and avenues, it's not the cheapest one.
I imagine.
It's just not.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I mean, I personally have gotten a lot from it. Not only me personally, relationships, networking, I've gotten clients from it, not in the first couple of months by any stretch, but it's done well for me. So, and honestly, I just enjoy it. Half the reason why I do it is just for me, really.
That's awesome. That's cool.
For my own guilty, needs of meeting with different entrepreneurs and picking their brain. I love it.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like, I've heard from other hosts that it's almost kind of selfish. Like you get to sit down and talk to people who have been through it, who have things to offer when normally they wouldn't give you the time of day, but they get to reach your audience. So you get to hear it. It's awesome. I love it.
I know. And I get to ask questions that I have.
There you go.
Awesome. And now what are some of the do's and don'ts if you are taking podcast interview marketing on?
I think you definitely have to think of every podcast interview as a media appearance, right? I like to say it's come up recently in some conversations of like, well, it's just a podcast. No. It's more than, quote unquote, just a podcast. This is a serious media appearance. Treat it as if you were going on, Good Morning America or the Today Show or something. Because to me, it's a respect thing. Number one, your audience is very invested in what you're doing, right, Lindsay? I mean, you're invested in it. The Sailing to Success show is a great show and people love it. And I need to treat it with respect, and I'm going to treat it as a media appearance. The other thing is, iTunes doesn't give you any information, as an outside source of like how popular is this podcast. So we like to tell our clients, don't focus on, well, this is the biggest podcast ever. I'm not going to get you on NPR, but I'm going to get you on great shows where you have an engaged audience, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're going to reach, 2 million listeners, okay, you might be able to say that you reached 2 million listeners as a guest, but did they take any action? So you need to really make sure that you are looking at the right metrics, this kind of thing. So be realistic in those expectations too. Right. And some don'ts, I would say don't take yourself too seriously. Don't, what else? I like to work in the do space. So
that's all right.
Do be professional, right? Have professional equipment. If you're going to use podcast interviews as a way to do your marketing, invest in a nice microphone. We actually send all of our clients at Interview Valet a microphone as part of their welcome packet.
Oh, nice.
So
that's a great idea.
Yeah. So we just want to make sure that you sound professional, that you act professional, that you show up early, help promote the show afterwards.
Yeah.
We really hammer that into our clients in fact, we even help our clients do some of that promotion afterwards through social media channels and different automations. So yeah, just, it's take it seriously. I mean, it's an important thing, but have fun with it too. Right.
I know. And it's like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's like you mess up, you stumble on your words. You might ask a stupid question every now and then, and it's okay.
Absolutely, man. Right. It's a conversation. Yeah.
We're all human. It's all good. Now explain for those that don't know what Interview Valet is.
The short answer is we help our clients get on relevant, purposeful podcasts to spread their message. Right. So it's kind of like a media agency, a PR agency. We work with clients like authors, speakers, business coaches, life coaches, emerging brands, software as a service companies, any kind of client that is involved in either business or faith or health and wellness. That's kind of our zone of genius. And we connect them with podcasts that their audience would want to hear their story. Right. So, yeah. And then we just teach them how to do some of this inbound stuff of links and social media promotion and all that. And there's, it's a whole system that we use that helps them bring in new leads and clients and stuff. So
that's awesome. Now, what makes a good guest? If you're looking to, hey, I want to call Interview Valet. I would love to be on a guest on other people's shows. I mean, some people are cut out for it and some people are not. And there's certain things that you shouldn't do, right?
Absolutely. I think that a good guest is prepared and professional. They know their story and they know why it resonates with people. You don't have to be the best storyteller ever, but you've got to be at least a little bit of a storyteller, right? If I'm going to talk with you about, inbound marketing, we talk about specific successes, I'm going to have those numbers. If we talk about the story about from the evolution of a news producer into a marketer, I'm going to know that story. Be able to converse and go off the cuff too is a big one.
Right.
It can't be an infomercial. If I got in here and just kept answering every question with, well, at Interview Valet, come on. Nobody wants to hear that crap, right? But as we talk, but just be conversational and be able to have that conversation. Also, focus. And I tell you what, we did this survey when I first started with Interview Valet. It's been 5-6 months now that I've been with the company.
Nice. And
so when I first started, the question was, how do we make new connections with podcast hosts? And of course, the team is meeting and a lot of great ideas, a lot of great opinions. But at one point, Tom Schwab, the founder of the company, looked at me, and we're all remote. So he's on the Zoom call with me, and he looks at the camera and he goes, well, Dan's got this look on his face. What are you thinking, man? And I said, great opinions, great questions. But has anybody ever asked the podcast hosts what they want? And everybody kind of went, oh, that's a good idea. So we did a survey and we talked about, how to pitch hosts and all these other things. And then that developed into a survey of the state of podcast interviews. And one of the things that we did is we asked everybody that responded to give us a piece of advice. If you're a host, give advice to guests and then vice versa, right? One of my favorite categories of quotes was about focus. And, one person said, for God's sake, don't type during the interview. Well, another person said, put away the jar of M&Ms on your desk. Don't be messing with those. Focus on the interview itself. It's a conversation. Don't have a bunch of tabs open and be checking your Facebook feed and whatever. And live tweeting during the interview. Focus on that interview. That's a big one for me.
people do that stuff? That's crazy to me.
I know. I can't multitask like that. There's no way.
I can multitask, bad enough, but no one. I'm doing a podcast.
Right? It's bad enough that my kittens are on their cat tree kind of distracting me. But, other than that, I'm good.
If it's cats, though, that's like, that's all good. I love cats, too. My Molly is laying on the ground beside me here.
Nice. Isn't that great being able to work from home and have your pets around? I know.
I actually saw pictures of you on one of your blogs, and you had, there was a couple of pictures of you. I'm like, you're a cat guy. You can't be too bad.
That's right.
Exactly. And gosh, being a guest, I think too, you need to know what you're going to talk about up front and how to position yourself and how to pitch yourself a little bit. So tell me a little bit about the all-important one sheet, because it is important.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're all so busy that we really need to have things broken down to us pretty simply, right? Give me bullet points, give me a paragraph or two, and give me some interesting things. And we have found through our research that hosts really love it when on that one sheet, we give them suggested interview topics.
I love that.
So, certainly you can use those as a word for word. Let's talk about this. Or you can just look at it and go, what does that make me think of? So it's up to, it's up to you. But yeah, that one sheet, that's so important. I mean, when we bring a client on, I spend about an hour on what we call a kickoff call. That they've submitted information into forms. We sit there and talk, and then from that we write the bio between that and a bio they might send us or their website or whatever. And we create this 2 or 3 paragraph bio that really positions them as the subject matter expert in whatever it is they're talking about, right? Whether it's a book or an online course or some kind of a philosophy or strategy. That's super important. And then a couple of bullet points. Like I said, the suggested interview topics, a photo. I mean, gosh, how often do you talk to somebody that you've never seen them or met them or anything? And that photo is the only connection you have to them. Right. So being able to picture that person in your mind, I mean, that's important. So
I love when I get one sheets and they have like topics, possible questions. Yeah, I might not use them all, but it'll get my head turning and like, oh, we could talk about this topic. And then I naturally have questions about that topic anyways. So yeah, it's so helpful.
Yeah. And we took our cue from, PR agencies. They make media kits, right? Yeah. And that's great. We keep ours a little more simple. Yeah. It's going to be, 1 or 2 pages, maybe a video link in the pitch email, but we really try and keep it simple because we know everybody's so busy.
I know. I've had some pitches where it's like, it's too much information. I'm like, just give me your one sheet where it has the list of topics and what you're an expert on.
Exactly.
And then, I check out their website and stuff like that, obviously, but just to kind of get a feel for them and what their content is. But yeah, to me, it's more about what they're going to talk about and what their topic is. I mean, I don't care how many followers they have. I don't, I don't even look at that. I know some people ask, how big is your e-list? It's like, I don't care. I just want to know what's inside their head. So I can extract some of those great strategies and use it.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Cause then you wouldn't have let me on with as few followers as I have. So no,
you're right. I don't even look. I don't even look. I was just excited. Because you're, obviously with Interview Valet, and I love podcasting and the fact that with Inbound Evangelists that you're focused on that inbound marketing. So, which is a passion of mine. So
I love it.
I knew we'd gel.
That's awesome.
Now, so once the podcast is all said and done and the host and the guests are all, been chit-chatting and had a good interview, what are some great to-dos or have-to-dos, once it goes live?
The 2 biggest things I would say to help make podcast interview marketing as a real success for each person is number 1, you got to have a place for listeners to go.
Yeah.
Right. Quite often, the interviews end with, how can they look you up kind of thing. And we might talk about find me on Twitter here, Facebook there, here's my email, here's my fax number, no, just kidding. Anyway. But really having that one place for them to go. So we help our clients create what we call welcome pages so that, as we're talking and I can say, yeah, this, if you want to look at my book that I wrote and get a free chapter, you can just go to interviewvalet.com/sailing for your listeners. and that actually exists. That's there. So that's one important thing. Send them back to a very specific page. Our homepage might change 100 times between when we record this and when it's live and when people find out a year from now, right? It's evergreen. So having one page is a great thing. And then number 2, promote. My gosh. Again, going back to that survey that we did with the State of Podcast Interviews report, so many people said, please promote the show after you're done. And I got to believe that they ask it because nobody did it. Right.
Isn't that crazy?
It blows my mind. Why, I tweeted, I think it was yesterday, I tweeted that I was excited to be on your show. And, fortunately, you empower your guests by saying, hey, here's a quick click to tweet if you want to that tags me and we'll share the social media thing. And so I did that, and I would do it anyway, but the fact that you empowered me to do it made it so much easier. Getting that email from Belle was awesome. But, we talk to our folks, and say, you need to promote. And we have that as a service. We connect with their Twitter accounts and help them do some automation. But yeah, gosh, it's so much fun to be able to look, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, and see yourself mentioned that here's Dan, he was a great guest and blah, blah, blah. So I got to believe that it's great for the host to see that thing too of, wow, they're still excited to be on this show. That's awesome. So yeah.
And I mean, it's evergreen content, right? Like share the hell out of it. It's funny how many people will post, whether it's a blog or a video or a podcast a couple of times, and then it just like gathers dust. Especially with Twitter and the feeds go so fast these days. It's like it's great content. Someone a couple of months ago that maybe wasn't even following you back then wouldn't have seen it. So,
Oh, and we definitely take the Guy Kawasaki approach, with Twitter.
Yeah.
Just tweet constantly.
Yes. Bang the hell out of it.
Yep, exactly.
Now, here's a question for you. So, and I've had this conversation with a number of different people in my field. So with Instagram, of course, you can't share links, and it's graphic. Not necessarily audio related, but do you have any tips for promoting podcasts within Instagram?
Yeah. I actually found a great company that we may end up offering as a service in some way to Interview Valet is that I was at Podcast Movement in Anaheim a few months ago, and I came across this guy. We just started talking, and he told me about this service, this company that he works for. It's called Audiogram. Oh, yeah. Okay. Have you heard of them?
I have.
It's incredible. You can download the podcast and create an excerpt, and it actually creates a little MOV file or MP4 or something like that, a visual file. And of course, Instagram has video now, right?
Yeah.
And it has a quote on it that you can put in there from your excerpt, and then it plays the excerpt. And then, from there people have to go search for it or whatever it is, right? You can put the link in obviously the post
or something, but
put it in your bio kind of a thing. So yeah, Audiogram is a great way to promote those things. And it's cheap too. I forget what the cost is, but it's really cheap. I've used it a couple of times and I really like it, but that's one of my favorites right now. Awesome. And then I think just, again, it's using the medium in its natural way, so if you can do a nice little photo with a quote on it, and then just say, look in my bio for links to all my podcasts. You can send them to, a podcast page, right? That's a great way a pretty easy way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen Gary Vee a ton, just like, hey, a new episode's release. And it's just more, I guess, informing them that, hey, there's a new one out there and it's about this. And, and then, I mean, if you have loyal followers, they're going to find it.
Yeah, absolutely. Not everything has to be clickable. Sorry for the marketers out there that think it does.
I know. And it's, and captivating graphics. And now that Instagram is more with those short videos and Audiogram. I don't know if it's like, I had Baird Hall on my show a couple weeks ago. He's with wave.co. So it's, I'm assuming it's a similar thing where you pull a piece of audio, you've got a graphic, and then it makes a little video of it. Kind of like a little preview of your podcast, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Wave.co. I'll have to look them up too then. That's a great tool.
So it's WAVV.
Okay.
E.co. So it's kind of got a weird spelling, but I'll check out Audiogram a little bit further too. I love tools.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're so cool. And So, I mean, obviously, you were kind of talking about having a home for people to go and find your podcast. Because it is amazing how many podcasters just rely on Libsyn or iTunes and they don't actually put it on their website. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Oh man, it's funny because I was listening to the show you did with Philip a couple weeks ago, whatever it was, talking about SEO, and you have to have, Phil Singleton, you have to have that home base, right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow Facebook could go away and Zuckerberg owns all your content and you're done, right? If you build your business only on somebody else's platform, I mean, it's really their business now, right?
Yeah.
So, Libsyn's great. And they're, I understand they're a fantastic partner for a lot of podcasters and everything. But that's the only place I can find you. There'll be some SEO behind it, but honestly, you need to have your own website. I mean, you really do. You have to have that control and then use all the other tools for what they're for. Yeah. I think when I was at the mortgage company before I was here at Interview Valet, I used to teach realtors how to do marketing the way I did it.
Oh, wow.
A lot of fun. I loved it. In fact, I even had a couple of state-approved continuing ed classes that I taught, and a lot of fun. But I would always tell them, look, if you're going to build your business only on a Facebook page, you're going to lose. Yeah. You have to have that home base. It's like, and I used to use the analogy because they're realtors. Hopefully they get it. Having a website is like having a home. Having a Facebook page is like having an apartment. You rent it. You want people to buy a home, right? And they're like, oh yeah. So yeah.
That's a good analogy. I like that. And so out of curiosity, everyone has different opinions, I know, but do you prefer podcasts to have like a summary, transcripts, full on show notes? Which one do you like better?
I think show notes are great. There are some new tools out there though that do great work on transcription and for a pretty, low price. If you can transcribe and use that as an article, I think that's the best way to go, really. And then have, maybe above that, have the show notes where there's some bullet points, a couple of links. Here's what we talked about. So that if I am in a hurry, I can just look at that. Right. Yeah. But as search engines and everything else that are out there that bring people to you, having that transcript, I think is still very important. So if you can transcribe it, that's a great tool to add to it. It's repurposing content. It's using things in multifaceted ways. You can have a blog article with the show embedded into it that has just show notes, right? And then you can do another article that has a link to it rather than embedded, and that can have the entire transcript. Maybe, so there's different ways you can use it. You can do that transcript as an ebook of the top 6 interviews that I've done in 2017. Well, there's all of a sudden an ebook that somebody can download, and it's all transcribed so they can read it. So it just depends on how your people, how your people, kind of take in content.
That's true. I know. I always call them my peeps.
There you go.
But yeah, it's true. Some people like to listen. Some people like to read. Some people, like to watch the podcast on YouTube if you publish it there. You got to think about, what they're listening and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you know that your buyer persona loves to read deep content, you've done your research and stuff, man, why wouldn't you transcribe it? Right.
Totally. Absolutely. So what is your favorite podcasting tool?
My favorite podcasting tool,
Audiogram, of course.
Yeah, for sure. My favorite tool really, I think probably isn't even a tool. It's more of a strategy. It's just podcast interview marketing in general. Yeah. And I just love having conversations. You said it earlier, Lindsay, you get to talk with people and pick their brain. I get to go on podcasts and talk to people who are doing this for a living and doing amazing work. And I feel very blessed to be on those podcasts. And have that hopefully drive business, obviously, for my company, drive some interest in my personal brand, my audience, the inbound evangelist. So that's the tool that I love most, is the actual category of podcast interview marketing.
Awesome. And yeah, it's like educating people and getting the word out. Because some people are like, they're just starting out in the entrepreneurial world, or they don't really understand all about podcasts or how to get on interviews and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's like if we can help only 2 people.
Absolutely.
As they say, but it's true, right? Like Because I don't know about you, but it's like, I remember starting out years ago, and it's like, where do you go for help? Like, where do you go to learn how to do something or be inspired? Or like back then, I never really even knew that podcasts exist years ago. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And now, I'm trying to, I'm working on a project to develop a list of the 50 best podcasts for public speakers. So I just want to offer, I'm excited about it. I love it. I just want to offer that information of like, if you want to be a professional speaker, here's a bunch of podcasts to listen to be inspired, educated, informed, whatever. And so I love the idea that this new world is out there and it's becoming so much more mainstream. It's exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's just exploded. It's insane to me.
Yeah.
I have one more question before we leave, because I'm here to pick your brain.
Absolutely.
So obviously we publish to iTunes, Stitcher. Are there any other ones that the directories that we should be going to?
I listen to stuff on SoundCloud also.
Yeah.
I like that. Obviously iTunes, Stitcher, Libsyn, the big ones. I don't use a lot of other ones. And as much as it's nice to be, other than SoundCloud, as nice as it is to be syndicated, so to speak, and reach more of an audience, it's creating your RSS feeds the most important part of it, because spending a bunch of time uploading and maintaining directories, people aren't there, right? I go to iTunes or Stitcher, and that's it, and SoundCloud, and that's it. But other people maybe go to other smaller ones. But honestly, it's that whole category king idea that, if you're not in iTunes, do you really exist? Right?
That's so true. I know. I like, I switched my phones and I haven't put it back on, but Podcast Republic was a good one that I liked.
Oh, okay.
I liked their interface, but yeah, everyone's different on what they like to use.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I know there's a bunch of other ones. There's, Overcast is one, Anchor is another one, I guess. But some of that is just, instead of, what's the word for it? Oh man, the opposite of creation is what? Not cultivation. Curating. Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yep. Yeah. So, some of those are just curating from, iTunes or other places. Sources, so yeah. Exactly.
Awesome. So if you had a message for my audience on podcast interview marketing, what would your final words be?
Be helpful.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, help others, whether you call it servant leadership, helpful marketing, whatever, educational marketing, anything you do, from podcast interview marketing to social media, to inbound, to content, just help others. Right. That's just huge for me.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Thank you for that. And of course, if you are looking to be a guest on other people's podcasts and share your wisdom and your expertise, definitely go to interviewvalet.com. And so besides interviewvalet.com, where can they find out more?
Honestly, that's the best place to go. If your listeners go to interviewvalet.com/sailing, they can find my social media there, my connections, my contact information. There's a sheet there, the 9 secrets to getting booked on your first interview.
Oh, nice.
And they can download an excerpt from my book that I wrote, how I went from journalism into inbound marketing. So, interviewvalet.com/sailing.
Perfect. And of course, we'll have that in our show notes too. So thank you so much for spending time with me and chatting. It's been so much fun. And I love talking about interviews. It's a blast.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure, Lindsay. I appreciate the time being on Sailing to Success. Have a wonderful day, everybody listening.
All right. So thanks, guys. That is it for today. You, of course, can find this interview and others at sailingtosuccesspodcast.com. And if you are looking to create a podcast show or you need help with your podcast production, don't hesitate to go to smoothbusinessgrowth.com and check out our services. So I wish you all a profitable and productive week, and may the winds always be at your back.